Hey, welcome back to the studio. Today, I'm going to show you items that I use to do my oil paintings that you see back here. If you've been a part of this channel for a very long time, you know that I started in acrylic painting. Now that I've transitioned into oil painting along with acrylic painting, oil paints and all the stuff that goes along with it has its own kind of kit and caboodle, and I kind of arranged them right here for you to see. Let's go through group by group items that I use to do my oil paintings. These are not set in stone. These are just kind of the basics of what I like to use. If you find something that works better for you, like a different medium you like to use or whatever the case, that's totally cool. I'm just here to show you what I got. To start off, let's talk about oil paint itself. It's pigment mixed in with a type of oil. Most likely like a linseed oil, sometimes a walnut oil, but it's usually those two things combined that creates paint that is long lasting and stays wet for much longer, so you can work it even longer than you would acrylic paint. Usually when I work with acrylic paints, by the time 5 minutes goes by, the paint is dry to the touch. When I work with oil paint and I touch the paint 5 minutes after, it's still super wet. It usually will start to get touch dry about 2 or 3 days later. I live in the Northeast, so normally I have a drier environment, especially now that it's winter, so my paint will tend to cure a little faster. So here's the thing that's also different about oil paint versus acrylic. Oil paint cures. It does not dry, it cures. But a lot of artists I hear, including myself, I also kind of interchange the word, oh, it's still wet too, it has not cured yet. Typically it takes about 6 months for that painting to fully, completely cure. But there's things that you can do that will help to keep your painting looking great even before the 6-month curing time is up. And we'll go over all that today. Let's go over to the paint. I like to use 2 types of companies for my oil paint. One is Da Vinci. Da Vinci is a paint manufacturer. They do oil paints, acrylic paints, and I believe fluid acrylics as well. They are fantastic, incredibly affordable too. So a lot of the paint that I get it from there. And these are like premium artist archival quality paint. The second company I like to go with is Gamblin. This is the 1980s version, which is like the student grade, but still it is very archival, professional set. I have both the 1980 and the regular Gamblin series paints. As you can see here, I have all the colors of the rainbow. I like to mix and do a myriad of different colors, so I do like to have the entire rainbow at my disposal. I have 2 rows here. Front row here are all my warm colors. The back row here is all my cool colors, and I use those to my advantage when I am painting. I'm going to list all the names of all the paints that I have here. Basically anything you see here on this table, I will include affiliate links to those in the description below. So we covered the paint. Now let's talk about the solvent. With acrylic paint, you usually work with water. In the case of oil paint, I use a solvent. More specifically, the solvent I like to use is a citrus-based solvent from Eco House. Way less toxic than like a regular turpentine or like a mineral spirit that you would typically use for oil paint. It's got like a low odor and it smells like citrus. I still recommend opening windows because anything to do with oil paint, you are going to be dealing with VOCs that will kind of go into the air, and you don't want that going into your lungs. So crack a few windows open just to be extra safe. When you buy it fresh, clean from the can, it is like a clear looking liquid. When you start using it with your painting and you clean your brushes with it, beat the devil out of it to get all the pigment off your brush bristles, a layer of paint sludge goes down to the bottom. What I typically like to do when I'm about to do a painting session, I will put it in a separate container, a glass container, no plastic. I'm using a pickle jar here. Feel free to use any kind of glass jars you find around the house. If you're done with pickles, if you're done with your jams, don't throw away the glass containers. Keep them, use them. They are invaluable. And I will pour it in very carefully like this. So you will see here that the solvent is a nice clean solvent. There is no sludge on it. As I'm painting and I'm doing my thing, I will use this, beat the devil out of my brushes. And when I'm done with my painting session, it's going to be very cloudy and kind of very like dirty looking, which is normal. When you're done, you take this, pour it back into your big solvent jar, then you cap it. always cap it. Even though this is less toxic, there's still VOCs, odors that are coming up, and you don't want to be smelling that all the time. Once I put all my solvent back in, usually if you give it 24 hours, all of that sediment that has been mixed in with the solvent will slowly reach down to the bottom. You'll get a nice clean layer of solvent on the top again to use. Very easy, very simple. I'm going to move over to the mediums that I also like to use. There are different things you can add to oil paint as you're painting to make it do different things. What I especially like to use is Galkid Light, a medium that you add into the oil paint to help thin it out, but thin it out and spread it out. Like, it creates this beautiful like consistency that'll stretch out that paint without completely deteriorating the quality of the paint. And it's got a drying agent in it, so it will dry your paint faster. I don't like to be painting for weeks on end. That's just me. I don't want to be working on one painting for weeks because I will get sick of it. I will take a little bit of this medium, put it in with my paint as I'm working on it, and usually by the next day, it is touch dry. It's pretty fantastic. I highly recommend it. There's also linseed oil that you can add in with your oil paint, and linseed oil will make the drying time slow down even more. And it also helps create a nice wash for your paint. I don't like to use linseed oil that much because it takes a very long time to dry. I did an underpainting of a bird using linseed oil and I think Van Dyke Brown. Just that one layer took 1 week to dry. So I was clearly tearing my eyes out wanting to move on to the next step, but I couldn't because I was waiting for the paint to dry. Use it to your strengths. If you are very much into that, if you like to have that super slow process in painting, because there are massive advantages to doing that, by all means, do the linseed oil. But if not, you might want to go with something like Galkid Light or Galkid. And like I said, there is a bunch. I barely touched the surface of oil painting, but this is what I'm using. This is what I like to do. So welcome to my world. Another medium you can add into oil paint is wax. This one here is Dorland Wax Medium. It's literally just wax you can take out with a palette knife, put it onto your palette, and mix in with your paint. Creates these beautiful impasto textures. Super cool. Also, something I always recommend as you're painting, as you're touching all these mediums, you don't want to have them touching your skin. It's one of those things you want to be safe than sorry. I always have a box of vinyl gloves put on my hands as I'm handling all the paint so that I'm not risking accidentally putting paint in my mouth. I have kids. I don't want any of this to be transferring to them either. So we clean up their mess with this. It's fabulous. So the one thing I haven't talked about yet is the palette that the oil paints get mixed and put upon. What I like to use is a glass surface. I found that is the most effective way of handling oil paint and then cleaning it up afterwards. That is my personal preference. What I like to use is my glass drafting table that I got years and years ago. I'll link that in the description below. But it's fabulous because it's a huge glass table. I put a little white sheet on the bottom here to help me with my color mixing so I'm not confusing my eyes. And if not, if you don't want to get a table like this, I have a video where I talked about how to make your own glass palette using an old picture frame that you would need to protect on the sides. It's not a permanent option. It's more like an in-between option if you're saving up for a nice big glass palette. Or you can use disposable palette paper. That is also a great option. It's also easy cleanup. It comes in sheets. You tear it off, you put it down, you put your paints on it, you mix, you do whatever you got to do, and then when you're done, you can throw it away. Hey, you can cut it up and send it to your collector. You can give them the actual palette at the end. Just some ideas. So if you decide to go with a glass palette, the way to clean it is very easy. You just take some isopropyl alcohol, you spray it all over the top of your paint. You give it about 5 minutes just to let it soak in. Then you take a razor edge, a straight edge, razor edge, and then you just go against the surface of the glass and it'll easily lift up the pigment right off the glass, and you just take a rag and wipe it. And here's another thing I wanted to add too. I like to use rags. Well, you need to use rags when you're oil painting. Rags are very important. You can't be using paper towels, although I have seen some oil painters use paper towels to wipe their brushes on and stuff. So I've always heard that it's good to use a cotton rag. I got these from old sweaters and old shirts. Take the shirts and I cut them up into rectangles like this. Now rags are fun because you can use it to wipe excess paint off your brush, and then you can clean your brush in the solvent. You can remove paint, like subtract paint off your canvas. So usually what I'll do is I'll like take my finger, put it under the rag like this, and then I'll just go on the still wet paint and remove stuff. This is so handy. I also like to use Q-tips to remove paint in certain areas. Always very handy. It also makes really cute little circles or fun little shapes. Q-tips are great for that. Brushes. I like to use a variety of brushes when it comes to my oil paint. Some of them are Filbert brushes. Like I have a large head Filbert brush here to cover my bigger surfaces. I have a chip brush for large paint applications. I have different sizes. It's important to have large size, a medium size, and a small size of brush. You want to have a variety for different types of brush strokes. I'm going to link all the brushes that I have in my arsenal in the description so you know what it is that I like to use. But it's all different shapes. Square brushes, I got Filbert brushes with a rounded edge, detail round brushes. I don't have a lot, but I have a variety, and I think that counts for something, right? And then the pièce de résistance. Once everything has been done with your painting, once you're satisfied with it, once you've had it cure for a while and it is touch dry, this is going back to the touch dry thing and sending it to collectors when you're done. Instead of waiting 6 months for your painting to officially cure and then have it ready to send to people, it's a long time, Gamblin makes a special type of gloss called Gamvar gloss. It's a varnish. It's suitable for oil paintings that are touch dry. So once you have an oil painting and you're touching all around and it doesn't leave any residue on your hand, you take Gamvar gloss and you evenly apply it onto the surface of your painting, and that should give it a sufficient varnish even before the 6-month cure time. This has been fantastic. I've used this for many a project, many an art project. I believe they also have an eggshell finish, like a semi-gloss, and probably a matte as well, but highly recommend the Gamvar. Is that everything? This is the grand arsenal, the big kahunas of what I use to do oil painting. What do you think about these supplies? Do you use something different? Comment below, let me know. I always love to hear from you. And with that being said, I'll talk to you next time. Bye!